In a small forgotten village surrounded by golden fields and tall mountains lived a boy named Rihan, whose world was poor in money but rich in dreams. His house was made of mud and his roof leaked whenever it rained, yet his heart was full of colors that no one else could see. Rihan didn't have real paints or brushes, so he crushed flowers to make colors, used mud for brown and ash for black, and drew on the walls with sticks and stones. People often laughed at him, saying, "Rihan, these colors will never fill your stomach," but he always smiled and replied softly, "Maybe not, but they fill my heart." One stormy evening, when the sky roared and rain poured like tears, a traveler named Yusuf, an old painter from the city, came to the village seeking shelter. As he walked past the small houses, he saw a young boy under a broken roof painting with rainwater on the ground. Yusuf stood still, watching silently, mesmerized by the life in Rihan's art. He approached and asked, "Where did you learn this?" Rihan shyly smiled and said, "I just draw what I see when I close my eyes." Yusuf was touched. He opened his old bag and handed the boy a small wooden paint box, his last set of brushes and colors, and said gently, "These belong to you now. But promise me, never stop dreaming." Rihan held the box like a treasure and that night, for the first time, painted with real colors, a city of lights, happiness, and endless hope. Years passed, but life became harder. Rihan lost his father, his mother grew ill, and the fields demanded all his time. Yet, every night after work, he still painted under the dim light of an oil lamp, pouring his heart into colors that no one saw. One day, a journalist visiting the village saw one of Rihan's paintings on a wall, a farmer holding the sun in his hands, and was amazed by its power. He took a photo and posted it online with the caption, "This boy paints with broken brushes, but his art mends broken hearts." Within days, the image went viral. People across the country wanted to know who the boy who painted dreams was. Rihan, who had never left his village, was invited to an art exhibition in the city. Nervous but hopeful, he took his old paint box and traveled to a world he had only imagined. When he entered the grand hall, he couldn't believe his eyes. His paintings hung on tall white walls under bright lights, surrounded by people who whispered in awe. A man came up to him and said, "Your art makes people feel alive. That's real talent." Rihan stood on stage, voice trembling, and said, "People told me dreams don't fill your stomach, but dreams fed my soul. And when your soul is alive, your life finds color." The crowd applauded. Tears filled his eyes. That night, he sold every painting and returned home not as a poor boy but as a dream that came true. He used the money to open a small art school in his village and named it Colors of Hope, where every child, rich or poor, could paint freely without fear. The walls of the school were soon covered with bright murals, flowers, stars, and smiling faces. Years later, an old man visited the school. His hair was white, his steps slow, but his eyes still had the spark of an artist. It was Yusuf. He looked around and smiled, saying, "You kept your promise." Rihan hugged him tightly and whispered, "And now it's my turn to pass it forward." The next morning, when Yusuf left the village, Rihan found the same old wooden paint box outside his door with a note inside that read, "Dreams never die. They just find new hands." Rihan looked at the rising sun, smiled through his tears, and whispered, "Then let the next dream begin." And from that day on, the children of Colors of Hope painted stories that reached the world, but one of them would go on to create something so powerful that it changed history itself. And that story, my friends, is for the next video.